All righty. And there we go.
We're recording. I see it.
We're on. Okay. So welcome, guys. So we're back at our monthly coffee talk, and my name's Michelle. I'm a NUCA chiropractor up in Calgary, Alberta. We have Carolyn Filla here down in Tennessee, and we have Tom Pastor, who is down in Minneapolis. So I'll have each of you guys, why don't you describe your practices a little bit, because you guys each have a kind of slightly unique practice style. So
Yeah, so my big focus in practice is the health of children and pregnant women. So what I've found is by helping pregnant women, that really influences the health of their baby as soon as they're born. But if they don't find me before that, then we take care of a lot of those childhood health complaints, so to speak, that moms are always worried about.
I'm Dr. Tom Pastor. My specialty is really helping people figure out what's going on when something is pretty advanced in their healthcare, so that I can help them make an action plan that is appropriate for them so they can feel better. That means that a lot of times I address behavioral components, nutritional components, as well as the physical health that I directly help with as a chiropractor.
excellent. And as a NUCA chiropractor or practitioner, I focus on head and neck injuries and how that influences overall body posture and function. So there's been a lot of controversy lately as to what exactly chiropractors do. And I don't know if you guys are experiencing that down in the States there, but I know there's been a lot of stuff going on in the media up in Canada here. And what we were briefly chatting about before we came on here was, what exactly is it that we're working towards when we're working with people? And it really comes down to what is health. And so what we're going to talk about today is really what it means to be healthy. As a chiropractor, we're really working as part of a greater healthcare system to collaborate within an integrative team to help people express themselves in an optimal fashion. And so to be healthy, what we've really defined it as is an ability to adapt. Are you adapting effectively to the daily stresses that you're encountering? It doesn't necessarily mean that you're never going to be sick. You're never going to feel any aches and pains. That's part of the natural process, but how do you adapt from that? How do you heal from that? And so Tom's going to dive into a little bit more of the three components that really make up health and where we tend to focus as chiropractors.
Right, so like I said in my introduction, I specialize in really helping people figure out complex things that are going on with their body so that they can make a plan that works for them so that they can feel better. A lot of times that means chiropractic care, but a lot of times that also means that I'll refer them to a mental health practitioner, to a nutritionist, to a naturopath, to a medical doctor, something of that nature. So that really stems from this concept that every behavior has three major components. It's a mental component, a chemical component, and a physical component. So when you get, and really these things, they are overlap and they intertwine and they all influence each other, and there really is no separating them except in the angle that you approach things from. So you get a really good example of this is dopamine. So a lot of people have heard the term dopamine, particularly when you're talking about social media and how, oh, everybody gets a dopamine hit when they look at their phone. So dopamine, being a chemical, being a neurotransmitter, is the chemical component of a system of rewards for doing things. It's a feel-good hormone. It's produced by a little tiny part really deep in your brain that we call a substantia nigra, but you don't really need to know that. It's just a little tiny deep part in your brain. And when you do something new that you're supposed to get a reward for, you get this hit of dopamine. That's the mental component. You get a mental reward for trying something new, for doing something that promotes your survival. And the physical component to that is just a new movement. I mean, you get a rush of dopamine, which means you also get a rush of blood. You stand up a little taller, you express yourself a little more, and you actually become more expressive when you get a hit of dopamine. You feel good. And a really good example of what happens when you don't get enough dopamine is Parkinson's disease, which is something that a lot of people have heard of. So when you consider Parkinson's presents physically. It's what you observe. It comes with a little tremor, but it also comes with a really flat gait and a really flat face. We call it a stone face. It's because you're not getting the physical component from having dopamine. You're not expressing. You're not up and open. And what that also looks like physically deep in the brain is that little part of your brain that produces dopamine atrophies. It gets smaller. And obviously, chemically, that means that you're not getting a lot of dopamine. So that's actually where a lot of medical doctors and a lot of current conventional interventions happen, is they just give you more dopamine. They give you more of something that pushes that chemical cascade. And the mental component to that is that you don't feel expressive. You don't do new things. You don't try new things. And what we as chiropractors do that seems to be generally misunderstood is that we work through the physical components to help the body have enough energy to deal with all of the other components. For somebody that has Parkinson's, I would never claim to help them cure Parkinson's. I would never help them, or never claim that I would push that chemical in a different way. But maybe if I can get them to move in a new way, maybe if I can give them upright posture, maybe if I can adjust them and help them do something like try a new sport, go dancing, pick up a new instrument to learn, that will push greater health so that they have the ability to do all those other things and the ability to function better with the condition that they have.
I think you made a lot of good points there, but especially when you talked, and both of you actually mentioned this word adaptation or some variation of that. One thing that people don't understand about chiropractic is that chiropractic is really about just giving your body the tools back that we are born with, because I believe that God created us fearfully and wonderfully and perfectly, not missing anything, not with any extra parts, anything like that. But sometimes our thought processes, our actions, all those sorts of things dampen some of those abilities that we were born with. So what chiropractic is doing is just giving our body back those abilities to naturally heal, because we are going to encounter different chemical imbalances in our life. We are going to encounter different mental struggles. We are going to encounter physical issues. For example, just sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day. All of those things are affecting our brain and the way that our body is able to express that health, just like Michelle said. But it's all about adapting and working through those struggles that we have.
Well, and talking about adaptation, I mean, something that we've mentioned before is that your body has a finite amount of energy at any given point in time. You have a definite amount of energy that you have to spend on any process at any time.
Well, and I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think it kind of goes back to our high school chemistry classes with the laws of thermodynamics. Energy can never be created or destroyed. So like you said, it's very finite. We're not going to create more, but we can't destroy it either. So if you're using a bunch of energy that's supporting you in a poor posture or taking a lot of energy to do all of these mental processes, you've got less energy left to do a lot of other functioning within the body there. Sorry to interrupt, Tom.
Yeah, no worries at all. So that was actually exactly where I was going with that, is by working through the physical body, by helping people move better, by helping them get rid of pain processes, by helping them get rid of pain more than anything, we provide more energy, or we help that person have more energy to put towards any other function. And that's where I think a lot of chiropractic is kind of running into an issue right now, is that a lot of chiropractors are claiming to cure things, and really it's just that we're promoting health in the body. It's not fighting any particular disease. It's promotion of the health that you have. It's promotion of your ability to adapt to whatever situation you're put into. Whether it's contracting some chronic disease, whether it's having seasonal allergies, whether it's having a food allergy. If you have more energy, if your body has more energy to spend because it's not in pain, because it's moving efficiently, because you're breathing efficiently, then you will have more energy to put towards anything, whatever your body decides to use it for. And I think that's one of the things that kind of separates all holistic health practitioners, be they a naturopath, an acupuncturist, a chiropractor, a massage therapist even, from what current Western medicine says, or current Western medicine works with, is a lot of us stop and ask, how is this working for this person? What's going on here and how is it working for them? Not necessarily, are they broken? How are they broken? How do we fix them? It's how can we promote whatever process is going on here? Because truth be told, I mean, we're pretty remarkable structures when all is said and done. I mean, we're a collection of, 30 trillion cells all working together to perform functions and help us move around. If we're doing a process, if we're doing something, it's working for us in some way. If somebody is born with autism, it's working for them somehow. So rather than trying to say this person is broken, let's fix them with drugs, let's make them look more like everybody else. Let's just make them a healthier human being, because a lot of people with autism turn out to be savants. I mean, if you allow them to promote their skills and the things that they are good at and not force them to be social with other people necessarily, not force them into social norms and allow them to be creative, those are the people that solve a lot of the world's problems. Those are, I mean, some of the smartest, most innovative people are people who are on the spectrum.
Yeah, and just like I mentioned earlier, like God created us so intelligently, so perfectly. So yeah, you hit the nail right on the head there, Tom. When you made that comment about the 30 trillion cells, I wanted to interject there, and I wanted to say how miraculous it truly is for 30 trillion cells to work together to maintain life. You know, and oftentimes we with another coworker or even a family member, even if it's just two of us, we can't work well together. And here's 30 trillion cells that work together in absolute perfect unison.
Well, the body is pretty incredible. And when you think about it, it's really, you've got all of those cells working together. You've got probably what's I don't even know what the numbers are right now, but I heard we're more bacteria than we are actual human cells.
Yeah, it's something like
that's working together, and it's that unity that makes us who we are, and that allows us to function in our current environment. And I think you had touched on this at the beginning, Tom. When it comes to health, yes, we focus very heavily on that physical end of things, but that's not the end all be all. You have biochemical things. You've got a behavioral, emotional, psychological component. And so what is really nice about being in this position is that though each of us practice very, very differently, in essence, we've got a fairly narrow scope in terms of where we actually perform our treatment in the physical realm. And that really allows us to integrate quite nicely with other members of the person's healthcare team and really just allow optimal delivery of care so that each of these aspects are being identified and addressed.
Right. And that's actually something I was talking to somebody just earlier today about. That is when I was talking earlier about how there's physical, chemical, mental components, and really it's just your point of view as to which one you're addressing, because addressing one will address them all. And we as chiropractors, as body workers, particularly as body workers with a doctorate level education and ability and scope, it's very rare in our current medical system to be able to touch and interact with a patient and their body, to actually do physical work with somebody. I mean, mental health providers are not allowed to touch their patients. At least they're not in the US. I don't know about Canada. But they're not allowed to touch their patients. Counselors are not allowed to actually have physical interaction with their patients. And it's the same thing across the board. I mean, a lot of MDs are even really shying away from having a lot of physical contact with their patients, whether it's because of, fear of boundary crossing or whatever. But chiropractors are in a very unique position to do body work with people with all of this information of how people work and process. And it puts us, we have a really unique ability to approach it from the physical side where other practitioners just aren't.
And you can't have that physical conversation without also talking about the chemical conversation, because we know different hormones and different neurotransmitters and things that are actually released through physical connection with another person.
Right.
Michelle, you look antsy to say something.
Yeah, she's got something on the tip of her tongue.
You're muted, so you'll have to unmute yourself first.
Oh, I thought I had unmuted myself. Sorry. I was trying to keep it quiet back here. But no, I think you guys kind of nailed it on the head here, that all three components here. And if you kind of dive deeper, there's some models that will separate them out into kind of 7 different factors. But in total, they all kind of group into these 3 categories, and they all interconnect. We know in terms of how the human body and how the human systems work together, everything's interconnected. You can't affect one system without affecting the other. You can't treat a digestive issue without also looking at what that's going to be doing to what that's happening in terms of a person's sleep quality and all of these other things. You change the biochemistry, you change their physical output and expression. And so I think just in terms of what we're able to do, it makes it really fun to have that physical component, have that ability to have a therapeutic effect through touch, but to also be able to provide education and direction on how to get help with some of these other components.
Right. And I think that's one thing that is very important to note, is that there is no one way to do anything. There is no one way to come at any condition. I mean, let's go back to Parkinson's that I talked about earlier. The conventional thing to do with Parkinson's is to give more dopamine, is to give a chemical that produces dopamine. But what they're finding now when you're treating those things is that component, that chemical component, will only be a miracle thing for about 6 months before it stops working, because that physical part of the brain is still atrophied, which means, okay, let's come at this from another way. Let's think about this from a physical component. They're finding one of the most effective things for people with Parkinson's is dance, because it's a physical movement that involves a lot of intricate new ways of doing things. Every dance provides new components. Every song means different movements, means you have to move in a different rhythm. And there are dozens and dozens and dozens of different types of dance. And so if you come at it from that physical side, I mean, it's just a perfect example of how you can come at that from many different angles and still promote the health of this person. And you're not necessarily getting rid of the initial deficit. You're not taking that away from them or curing them of that disease. You're helping them work with it. You're helping them learn that piece of themselves so that they can ultimately be their best self with that thing.
So I guess what would be one key piece of advice that you guys would give people if they're looking to promote their health expression?
Tom really just mentioned this, but I think it's important to say that there's no one thing that's going to help every issue. So if there's somebody who is saying that you're not going to be healthy until you try my one product or until you do my one service, I would say run as far the other direction and as fast as you can away from that person or that office or that practice or whatever it may be, because there's just not. Even within one office, there's no one thing that we can help, So even Tom, you talked a lot about the behavioral or the mental. You can't just address the mental side of things. We as chiropractors can't just address the physical side of things and say that every little thing is going to be all right. You know how that goes. But it's really about finding your team, finding your tribe, finding all the providers that are going to work in your best interest and are going to reassure you that your body is amazing, that your body can heal itself as long as you give it the right tools. So definitely looking for different providers who are going to provide education and insight into all of those different 3 categories.
Yeah,
excellent.
And I also, I kind of want to add, I think that to answer your question, the biggest thing for someone who's really just looking to promote their health is ask questions and be open to the answers. I mean, we have this tendency to want there to be one answer. We have this tendency for it to be one problem, one solution. But like I said, we're a collection of 30 trillion cells. The truth of the matter is there are probably 30 trillion solutions to everything that ever comes up. And just ask questions. I mean, I consider that one of my greatest strengths as a doctor is just to ask questions that other people haven't asked yet. And I think that's the biggest component to any promotion of health, to anything really. I mean, growing a business, growing yourself, developing yourself, growing as a family, as a person, as a business, as a community, is ask questions and be open to answers. Don't dismiss out of hand because it's different than what you thought.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. And I know when we're working with our patients and we're kind of going through things, we always start with an initial consultation. And from a practitioner perspective, it's a chance for us to see, do you have something that we can help you with? But I think from a patient perspective, I think you need to look at it as you need to do your own research into the type of treatment, the product, whatever it is that you might be looking into. But also you're in the position to be interviewing your doctors. You don't be afraid to do some doctor shopping. Look around. You have to find that relationship that fits with you, fits with your personal philosophy and what your goals and objectives are. Because like these guys have just said, there's no one solution to everything. If we had a magic wand that could make everything go away, man, that'd be a whole new world. But then that would also probably be pretty darn boring. So I think the biggest thing is that we do encourage people to really be informed about their decisions and don't just take the information blindly. So that's the biggest thing I think you can do to empower yourselves.
Well, and on that note, you actually said something that really sparked in me, is that you can interview your doctors. Mm-hmm. That's something I forget who I was having a conversation with about that, but it was a fellow provider, and she was talking through somebody who was getting ready to go through a treatment. I think there was a tumor involved, but it hadn't occurred to this person that they could interview multiple surgeons. They could talk to multiple people. They could go to multiple doctors and select the one that they wanted to work with. I think they just assumed you go to a place, whatever system you're in, they tell you who your doctor is, they tell you what they're going to do, and they get you through whatever treatment they think is best. And ask questions, do research. I mean, they're, especially with things like tumors, like major surgeries, they're about to perform something huge on you. I mean, something that just does not exist in the natural world, that you survive anyway, where you get cut into and some part of you gets removed or replaced or altered. Ask questions until you're satisfied with the answers. If they can't help you understand what's going on, they're probably not the best doctor for you anyway.
Excellent. Any last thoughts from anybody?
No, I don't think so. I think that we covered.
No, I think we covered a lot. So
yeah. Well, this has been fantastic. We do try to do these at the first Friday of every month. And so as we slowly start picking up and get more into a rhythm with this, we'd love to hear people's questions, people's concerns. If you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And we're looking forward to addressing them in future coffee talks.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Excellent. Okay. Bye.
Bye.